I didn't think it would come so soon, but like I'm really regretting that we only have 30 minutes.
I know, it seems so short now.
Like there's are we is it too late for us to go back? Like
No, we're locked into the 30. Like we said we were going to do 30 and now we have
this
to.
episode was insane.
I know there's there's so much to talk about, but I think we can do it. We did a good job last time. But our episode was so short. And remember how we were like, the episodes are too long, and we did such a good job making it short, and now we can't go back on our. We promised our listeners
no way we can
30 minutes. We promised. We were like, we're keeping it to 30 minutes, and we won't go over.
Damn it! Return to a time of pastness. In a flashback episode, we discover the rift between Osha and May.
Devan and Peter will discuss all of their thoughts on this episode in only 30 minutes.
There's no way that will be enough time. There's so much more to discuss.
Peter's having a minor meltdown. Don't worry about it. The show contains spoilers for The Acolyte episodes 1 through 3.
What about 45 minutes? I really think it's possible that we can do this in 45 minutes.
No, Peter, we're locked into the 30 minutes. We're doing a 30-minute episode.
Roger. Hi, I'm Peter.
And I'm Devan, and this is I Am No Acolyte, part of I Am No podcast. Today we'll be discussing episode 3 of The Acolyte.
Okay. In 30 seconds, we have to quickly recap the episode. I'll go first. In this episode, we had a freaking cult trying to make little girls into their saviors, and the Jedi showed up, and they were all like, hey, we don't want you to do that. And they're just like, you're not even supposed to be here. And there's just nobody to root for but these little girls. And one of them, it turns out, is a total freaking psychopath that just burned everything down and pulled a friggin' Milton from Office Space who sets the cult on fire. I yield my time. There we go.
All right, that was pretty good. That was impressive.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Recap in 30 seconds. We have a flashback episode. We got loads of childhood trauma. We got loads of adulthood trauma. Mostly just adulthood death. I guess they're not really traumatized after because they're all dead. But yeah, we find the root of all the trauma. We got evil twins. We got not so evil twins. We got witches and cults, and then the Jedi come and they're like, oh, yay, Jedi. But then they're like, oh, no.
10 seconds.
Osha's like, yay, Jedi. And everybody else is like, boo, Jedi. And I guess that's it.
Nice. We did it.
Done. Off to a good start.
Cool. How'd you feel about the episode?
I loved this episode. I love a good flashback episode. This was a good flashback episode. I thought in the beginning that it was just going to be like a quick flashback, like before the title screen comes up, and then the rest of it would be like in present day. So I was really excited that the whole episode was a flashback, because I always want more backstory.
Really good point.
So yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting.
Didn't expect the whole thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I was really excited about it. I thought it was done super well. It brought in lots of really good lore, and yeah, I love a really good fleshed out backstory. So I was happy that they took so much time to spend on this. And yeah, what did you think?
I was similar. I thought it was really cool. I also was not expecting the whole thing to be a flashback, but once I realized that's what they were doing, I was like, awesome. This early, and this intricate. Super cool. And it also, and I'm going to get into this later, didn't feel extremely like Star Wars aside from the Jedi element. And the fact that there are spaceships and planets. Like, other than that being part of the world build, this felt like just a futuristic, interplanetary, like, story about groups of people. And I'll get into that. But that made it much more, I guess, like, if you're into Star Wars for the fact that it can be an engine for different stories, that was cool. Yeah, my overall take was I took it as it was. I definitely felt some Foundation vibes. If anybody watched season 2 of Foundation, it felt a lot like the Mentalics. So, reminded me of that, and I really like that storyline. So, yeah.
I don't know what that is, but I believe you.
So now we're going to do one of our favorite sections where Devan is going to explain to everybody, how does this relate to the Star Wars universe?
Sure. So there's definitely several different things that I saw sort of references to, or just things that it reminded me of. So first of all, you've got a cult of witches, which has really reminded me of the Night Sisters, Dathomir. This isn't that, I don't think, although there's some, it could be somewhat related. Dathomir and the Night Sisters have different uh, iterations or different imaginings, and whether you're looking at legends or canon stuff, Clone Wars era. Um, and so there's definitely more stuff that could be pulled in from that. That's also
There's
being
definitely no
explored.
green magic going on, which is very Night Sisters,
Yeah.
and
So
they've been around for hundreds of years, and we don't see any with their their face thing that they become, like we saw with Orin and Elspeth.
yeah, yeah. So and that's something that's being explored in Ahsoka. So that's I don't think that they're like early Night Sisters, although there could be a sort of a connection. It's kind of a tangent, but I just finished today an old Legends novel called The Courtship of Princess Leia, which
Mm-hmm.
is, I think, not a very popular or widely regarded one, but I really enjoyed it personally. Um, but this is actually where Dathomir and the Night Sisters were first introduced, was in this book from the 90s, which I did not realize that it went
Really?
back that far. So it was
That's so
really,
cool.
yeah, it was cool learning about like the origins. It looked very, very different from like what we know of the Night Sisters and Dathomir from Clone Wars and beyond.
Yeah.
But it was really cool to see what that looked like in its first iteration and kind of how it evolved from there.
Had they
So
given it a whole redesign by the time they did Maul and stuff like that, since Maul is also supposed to be from Dathomir?
um,
Like, do the people look different in this book?
Yeah. So they have, in this book they have different tribes basically, and the Night says so they have like um different tribes, and it's like the Singing Mountain clan. I think it was like this one tribe of women who were like, a lot of them were force users. It was very like matriarchal society, and then the Night Sisters were sort of and a lot of them were able to use the force, and so the Night Sisters were basically force users from the other tribes who like gave into the dark side and became dark side force users. Essentially, they didn't have that language around it, but they were like one of them, became bad, started doing this stuff, and then basically what happened was other like clan members and stuff tried to fight her, and if they started using the force like for violence and out of anger and stuff to try to fight her with its own kind of power, they would then become Night Sisters themselves because they were tapping into like the anger and like those things that lead to the dark side, right? So it was this
Hmm.
cool like they kept losing sisters to the Night Sisters because they kept trying to tap into this dark side force energy in order to fight the Night Sisters, and then it kept gaining members. So that lore was really really interesting. So I had that a lot in my mind while I was watching this because I was just reading that book. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing that it was really reminding me of is so in the High Republic novels that have been coming out, which this ties into, there's a cult called the Path of the Open Hand, which this also doesn't seem to be exactly that. But again, this is 100 years or so um, after those books take place. So this could be sort of an offshoot of that or some evolution of that. But it's basically a cult. They're very anti Jedi because of their use of the Force. So some of the stuff that they're talking about in the cult in this show definitely reminded me of that when they talk about the Force not being a thing to use, like in a certain way. Although a big difference is that in the books, the Path of the Open Hand doesn't use the Force at all because they believe that the Force should not be manipulated in any way, and that's why they really hate the Jedi. And this coven obviously does use the Force, so it's just kind of a difference. But there's very very big potential for there to be some sort of tie in there. Um, and then I know I've got like 40 seconds, but the last tie-in that I noticed is a echo to the Phantom Menace with the twins having no father, which in the Phantom Menace, Shmi says that Anakin has no father. He's kind of created. It's left vague, but here it's explained that Mother Anasea created them somehow. They say if the Jedi discover how you created them, so I'm really interested to see where that's going,
Yeah, that could
if and
play into
how.
how, because it's sort of canon now from the comics that Plagueis made Anakin,
Right.
so it could play into they figured that out on their
Yeah, so I'm
planet.
interested to see. Yeah, she probably figured out like how to manipulate the force in the same way or a similar way that Plagueis did when he created Anakin. So I'm really hoping that they go into that and interested to see if and how they do that. Okay, and that's 5 minutes.
The challenge of the timers. We're going to go over for a couple this episode, I think. And then we'll go into overtime. Because we can do overtime, right?
No, 30. We talked about this.
We
Stop trying to get extra minutes.
We didn't talk about if overtime was a thing. Like, that's a thing in sports and lots of things.
This isn't sports. This is Star Wars.
Okay, fine. We will discuss this when we go into overtime. Now we have Peter's rapid fire list of jokes. And go. So basically, these were Witch Town princesses living on Witch Mountain on another planet. And then they point out these are the only children here. Boom. That's every single anime where the children twins are an experiment. And then they go on an epic friggin' Campbellian journey. Not really a joke as much as this is a trope it falls under. Pointing it out. Also, Osha. Beginning of the show, we saw her. She was just chilling. She's like, I got a day job. I work on a rig, and I've got a droid that's basically a tape recorder. She's very, very your humble Peter Quill punching his clock kind of vibe, down to earth emo girl. But what a hardcore origin story for your cool girl that we got here. Her twin burnt down her whole village when they were trying to raise her to be a witch savior of a cult? Holy shit. Like, talk about dating is hard. I got baggage. And of course, this episode, as awesome as it was, at the end it says, directed by Koganada. I do not know who that is, but that is the coolest name I've ever heard. It sounds like the best drink you've never had on your spring break, and goddamn it was. Thank you, Koganada. You knocked this one out of the park. I love your name. And that's all I got.
I'm looking at Koganada because I'm like, I also don't know who that is. South Korean born American.
Really cool name, right?
Very cool name, yes.
Love it when a person has one name as their thing. Like Beyonce and Koganada.
Cher.
Yeah.
Automatically iconic.
Yeah, automatically. Favorite parts. Okay. I'll dive in first. I think it was cool that they really toy with our expectations a little bit in this, since it's a flashback. It's like these are characters when they're younger, so they could be about to do anything. They could be about to do something immature. And I was thinking that specifically, they did it a couple times, but I thought of it when they had Soul reach for his lightsaber, and you're like, oh, does he suck in the past? And instead, he's like shows it to the kid, and it's like, oh, he's good with kids. He knows that they think it's cool. And that was a nice little, they were playing with our expectations moment. They did stuff like that a lot in this episode, and I thought that was unique direction. Also, in, I think, the same scene, or maybe it's the next one, where they have a confrontation, Soul specifically says, Jedi do not take children. And I was like, he actually said it!
The hell you don't!
That's all they do! Like,
it's their whole thing!
What happened to you? Were you taken as an adult? They were like, oh, you're too old. You're not 5. Like, what are their standards for eating, for crying out loud? Have you ever seen a fat Jedi? How toxic are they? You're too old. You're too fat. Like, you take children. Chill out. Okay, joke over.
Oh, it's my turn. Yeah, the first thing that I really loved seeing in this that I got really excited about was the twin moons on Brendok. When it has an establishing shot when they first go back to their like temple mountain there, and there's 2 crescent moons. One is red and one is blue, and I automatically noticed it. So in the Acolyte logo, and they have and the little like title screen that comes up.
Oh, it does match the logo.
The double O. Yeah. They've got like this doubled O, and when it was first revealed that it was twins, I was like, oh, the double O makes sense. And one of them is red and one of them is blue. So I was like, oh, they've got like the Jedi and the Sith one. So yeah, the twin moons mirrors that, which I thought was really, really cool. And then that became a bigger theme throughout the episode as it was part of their ceremony and everything. But I thought that was really neat, and it tied in with the logo. They probably designed the logo based on that, but that was cool to notice. The other thing that I wanted to spend some time talking about is Lee Jung-Jae, who plays Master Soul. He is amazing. He freaking learned English for this show.
I know you told me this, and I told my roommate that, and he was like, that is mind-blowing.
Yeah. So he's a really highly esteemed Korean actor. He was in Squid Game, which was very popular on Netflix. but he this was the first role I believe that he's done in English, and he was just really excited to be in Star Wars. He did like a crash course in English for this, and the fact that he's able to portray so much emotion and bring so much depth to this character in a language that he is just learning is absolutely astounding to me. I'm so blown away by it. So I'm so excited to keep watching him in this role. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's
Like,
incredible.
give this man all the awards.
I have a theory about his character, and I don't want to take too much time on this, but he's being so nice, and so far, almost all the other characters who are Jedi who were involved in this flashback are either dead or they weren't very involved in the flashback. Like Kelnaka was just kind of there.
Rocking his millennial barista haircut.
Oh my gosh, such a millennial barista haircut. Yeah, 100%. Or someone who works in a brew pub that is made with like industrial and bricks kind of
Yeah, the
vibes.
like
Like,
industrial chic with like the bare
yeah,
ceilings. Yeah.
definitely has at least 1.5 tattoo sleeves and a black T-shirt. Like, yeah, what a haircut for a Wookiee.
I love that.
Loving it. Yeah, 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 yeah. So creative. So 100 years before the long time ago in a galaxy far, far away vibe. Yeah, given that he was the most involved character in this flashback and was the only person that you're just kind of like everyone's kind of in the wrong, but he's following his heart. He feels very Qui-Gon Jinn, and we mentioned he had those
Mm-hmm.
vibes in the future, but like we got to kind of see him do it like when it really mattered for someone young. And it felt very akin to Phantom Menace, his relationship with Osha, reaching out to her and being like, you got to trust me, you got to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
100% calling it right now. He's going to die. I'm calling it.
Ah.
It's my prediction. It just makes sense.
Yeah,
He's going to
probably.
die. He's going to die.
Fuck.
Yeah, it
He
sucks because he's
did.
great.
Lee Jung-Jae also cited Qui-Gon Jinn as one of his big references when he was studying for this role. So he's definitely pulling a
We're
lot.
way over time for favorite parts.
But so many favorite parts.
Oh, yeah. That's cool
Um,
that he also studied Qui-Gon Jinn. So, yeah, prediction. He's going to die. 100%.
uh,
Like, it's
I
a
hate
given.
it, but you're probably right. But
Yeah.
all right, we got to move on.
Yeah, we got 3 topics to discuss in 5 minutes, and we got 12 minutes. So either we're going into overtime or we're cutting some of these.
Let's see how quickly we can get through them. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the term acolyte, and I have some thoughts about this. So I did a little bit of research, and I want to talk about this term a little bit. So the term Sith acolyte um, was a rank within the Sith Order prior, and this is from like Wikipedia, but Sith acolyte was a rank within the Sith Order prior to Darth Bane's Reformation, which is
Made
when
the rule of
they
two.
implemented the rule of two, correct?
Yep.
So before that, the term was used to refer to force sensitive apprentices who had only just started on the dark path under the tutelage of a more experienced Sith Lord. So that correctly
Yeah.
describes um,
What's happening here?
May in the show to rightfully bear the mantle of Sith. Going back outside, taking it out of Star Wars context for a moment, I looked up just the definition of acolyte, which in its an acolyte in its original religious definition is one who assists a higher ranking member of a church or a cult, and then it's become mostly associated with being an assistant or follower, assisting a celebrant in a religious service or procession. In many Christian denominations, an acolyte is anyone performing ceremonial duties such as lighting altar candles. In others, the term is used for one who has been inducted into a particular liturgical ministry, even when not performing those duties. So that was then brought into the Star Wars universe as Sith acolytes. What I'm thinking and where I'm pulling this into kind of a theory sort of realm is that the in this context of the show, acolyte could potentially also refer to Osha being an acolyte of the Jedi.
I mean, kind of. It's just, it feels like it's an already assigned term. And, like, it'd be one thing if it didn't exist for, like, literally the exact other side. Because it's like, oh, they're both technically religious. So it could mean that for both, since in
Yeah,
our
like Jedi
universe,
is a
there's a religion
religion
where it
and
meant
it
it.
is a bit of a cult. So
Yeah.
like there's no reason other than the fact that Sith are already using acolyte, but there's
Yeah.
no real reason that acolyte couldn't also refer to a follower of the Jedi Order. But what it was making me think of was that all the build up to this show and discussion about like the acolyte, like it was like, oh, it's going to be a Sith led show, and there's this main character who's a Sith acolyte. And then in the first episode, I was like, well, she's not really the main character, is she? Like Osha gets introduced as the main character pretty much off the bat, and they're
Definitely.
twins, and it's very much counterpart. But like it, inevitably the good guy, in terms of screen time, she's got way more screen time and dialogue, where like she's set up as the main character. So I kind
I
of
think
felt a little bit like, oh, they kind of set it up as the expectation was this Sith led thing, but it's her. But I was like,
I
what
think you're
if?
partially right. I think you're partially right. We're gonna run out of time.
Yeah.
Um, but I got to tell you what I think. Hearing what you said, I think that you're going to be right that it is Osha, but I think it's going to be because Osha ends up turning.
Ooh,
She has a
interesting.
Qui Gon Jinn. She has this
Oh,
tragic
damn.
past, and
She's
there's
got
she's
no
already
father.
been kind of abandoned by the Jedi. There's a good
Oh,
reason,
she's got fucking Anakin's
and
whole backstory.
Disney loves doing the same thing
It
over and
rhymes.
over again.
It's like
Yeah, it's just
poetry.
like
It
last week.
rhymes.
Yeah, but not in a good way because honestly, like I want to see different things.
Hmm.
Like if this was a story like we said last week of it wasn't a twin, it wasn't an evil twin, it was a split personality disorder
Hmm.
manifesting as her dead evil twin.
Hmm.
So in the split personality disorder, she's both a Jedi and a Sith.
Hmm.
That's such a sick
That would have been
conflict.
really cool and really
So sick. I
unique.
would have totally watched a whole show about that. And guess what? It wasn't that. It was just twins and Star Wars again in conflict. Jason and Jaina, Luke and Leia, all
And
of
we're
the
still gonna
friggin'
watch all of
twins.
it. I'm sure it'll
They're
still be
just
good,
doing
but
the same thing again. And I'm like, why do that when there are better ideas that you could do? And I'm not saying my idea is better, but that is one example of an idea that is different and would have been friggin' awesome. So, yeah, like,
no, but
I'm just
seriously,
pointing out,
she's
I
literally
think they're
like
doing the same
she's
thing again.
taken away from
She's the
her home.
blueprint,
She's she's Anakin. She's conceived with by the Force with no father.
supposedly.
Yeah, she gets
Allegedly. Allegedly.
allegedly gets taken off to join the Jedi by a long haired.
We're so going into overtime. I'm calling that now, too.
It's just happening.
I
Um,
told you so. I told you we would need more time.
so he becomes like the father figure that she never had, and then if he gets killed and she turns to the dark side, that's literally Darth Vader's story.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Um,
Well, we'll see. We'll see
okay.
what happens.
The fact that we have this community that's only women and they're coming into like a political uh, geological conflict with the Jedi who are out of their jurisdiction. And as an audience member, you're kind of hit with the conundrum of what is best for the people in this situation. That's
Mm-hmm.
a very Star Trek conflict.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to like see what I'm talking about, hilariously, a amazing show right now that a lot of people are saying feels more Star Trek than a lot of Star Trek shows is the Orville.
The Orville. I
They
was just
have
thinking
a
of that. It's so good.
yeah. What is the group that is like all male
The
and they keep
Mocklins.
coming? The Mocklins.
Yeah.
Any of the episodes with the
Mm-hmm.
Mocklins really hit on these.
So
This
good.
is a complicated issue that is
Mm-hmm.
nuanced. How do we work through all of the times that these two different cultures come into conflict where they disagree so vehemently about the right way to do things?
How did this
Um,
thoughtful, nuanced, amazing show come out of Seth MacFarlane's brain? Is what blows my mind. From the
I
minds
don't
that
think it
brought you
all
Family Guy.
entirely came from him, but I think it probably came from an appreciation for Star Trek.
I think he was just a huge Star Trek fan, and I think he wanted to
Yeah,
be in Star Trek, and they wouldn't put him in it, and he was like, "Fine, I'll make my own Star Trek," and then he did an
yeah.
amazing job.
He did a really good job, and he just had to have a really silly first season. So they're like, "Oh, I get it. You want to do Star Trek, but Family Guy style." And then he's like, "Yeah." And then in season 2, he was like, "No, not really. I just wanted to do my own Star
JK, I
Trek,"
just wanted to make
and
my own Star Trek.
it really was good. Like,
So good.
yeah, 100%. Um, Speaking of nuanced issues, the last topic we wanted to dive into while we have less than 2.5 minutes is the mom. Um, I thought it was pretty complex that she was raising them as cult saviors, which is a horrible thing to do to your children. But when Osha is like faced with a choice that they all don't want her to make, she actually like is very selfless as a parent and like
Yeah.
gives it to her straight, which is hard to do, but very empowering and kind in the long
Yeah,
run.
I was so intrigued by her character because I never knew how she was going to respond to something, or like I would expect her to
Those are
respond in
two,
one way, and then
yeah,
yeah, like she's this like
those are two
very,
extremely different things to
yeah,
do.
very
Like
like
you're on one side of the spectrum
powerful,
with one. Yeah.
yeah, and very powerful and like in charge, like cult leader, literally cult leader kind of person, but then like very sweet, genuinely loving, wants what's best for her child kind of mom, when she's like, hey, like really doesn't want her to make this choice, but she's like, this is what I really want, and she's like, well, I love you and I want you to be able to make your own decision. Like what cult leader
Yeah.
says that? Like, you know?
It shows people are more than one thing even when they're at their worst. Because if you're
Yes.
driven to be like, I'm going to do this horrible thing to my children and I'm committed to it, and I don't even think it's a horrible thing, I'm just
Yeah.
determined to make my children saviors, I believe in this. There's You wouldn't expect in any universe for them to actually divert from that. Like you'd think they're too
Yeah.
fixated on it. But
Yeah.
she was able to be reminded, I love you this much that I
Hmm.
want to say the right thing to you. Like
Yeah, she was an
that's
exquisitely complex character. Such good writing.
yeah. Yeah, that was a scene that I was just like writing a lot of notes on. I was like, this is shockingly really good parenting,
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
compared to everything else we saw in the
Yeah,
episode.
really. I don't
Worth
know.
noting. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's what I meant.
Oh,
Just
I
I
was just
was.
gonna say she has her name as her last name. It's Osha Anasea. Anasea is the name of
Hmm.
that mother. I don't know if May also uses that last name. If that's a thing that they discussed on the thing, or when she left the planet, she took that as her last name. But that's just kind of a nice little like tie in that she kind of kept that from her mom.
Mm.
Three,
Three,
two,
two,
one.
one.
We did it.
Stop.
We did
Did
it.
you have anything else to say about that? Because I think we covered it.
No, I think
I think
we nailed it.
holy shit,
I
that
can't
really
believe we
came
did it.
together. What the hell?
It did not look like we were going to do it, but we did it, and
Yeah.
I'm proud of us.
Trust in the force,
Hell
motherfucker.
yeah.
Holy shit.
We got totally off the rails, but we brought it home. So now what we have, which exists outside of our 30-minute time limit, is our silly question of the week.
Yeah, we will never deprive anybody of that, so that stays outside. It's sacred.
Yeah, the silly question is sacred.
All right, I'll read it off because you're going to go first. The question this week is, what would your cult be in the Star Wars universe if you were in a cult?
Okay, so instead of giving my answer for myself, I'm going to give one for, this is what my husband's would be. If my husband was here and not sleeping right now, this is what his would be. Chris's Star Wars cult would be the cult of safety rails, which would be very countercultural and have a lot of pushback,
I love it.
especially within
So
the ranks of
funny.
the Empire, because the Empire hates safety railings
Yeah,
on
they
all of
never
their
have a safety
edifices.
railing anywhere.
Every time I watch any Star Wars with Chris, he's like, "Why are there no safety rails?" He's also, for listeners at home, my husband is an electrical inspector, so he is literally inspecting buildings for safety all day,
Yeah.
and he just cannot watch Star Wars without being like, "Why are there no safety railings?" Especially when there's lightsaber battles and people are like falling off of platforms constantly. He's like, "Railings, railings! There would have solved that." So I think that he would have a cult of safety railings where they just like maybe they would, I don't know if cults often do like volunteer service. I think a lot of them do. They would probably
They
go
become
around like,
access fund. Yeah.
yeah, they would like go around like installing safety railings, or like celebrating. They would probably hold some sort of like ceremony to celebrate when somebody puts a safety railing up. Their like temples would be the safest buildings you would find around. So I think that would be Chris's cult.
I I almost want to, and I don't know if I've made this joke in a previous episode. I'm not going to change my answer, but because we're talking about the funniest gripe in Star Wars, which is safety railings, I almost want to change my answer to security cameras because they get away with so much in a futuristic society, and like you'll hear stories today like, how did Steven Spielberg get his job? Well, he just kept sneaking on to the Warner Bros. Lot. I'm like, that would never happen today because they have security guards and security cameras, and we don't even exist in the Star Wars universe. We
Mm-hmm.
don't. We don't have technology that is that high tech, but we do have Big Brother. And, and it bothers me so much whenever they're just like, how did they get on board the Imperial ship? And I'm just like, nobody's checking the security cameras. Nobody's just like, oh, look, there they are. Like, it's just like, I'm just
Oh
gonna
yeah, they're right
be
there.
sneaky. I'm just like, this isn't some shenanigans, some child's play. Like, I mean, it is for kids. But also, I'm just like, it's too big of a reach in 2024 for me to be like, there are no security cameras. I had a different answer, but I think that's my true answer. Is I would like to create a cult of the Star Wars equivalent of data analysts who, anytime some Imperial executive is just like, "How are we going to find them, Lord Vader?" Someone just stands and just points. And it's just like, so we have this thing. We have had this.
Oh, they're
whole
right
time.
here.
They're right here. We've seen holograms of Anakin killing younglings, but for some reason nobody saw it while it was happening, and was just like, "Anybody want to do something about that?" And like, that didn't happen.
Yeah, we've
Like,
got the
not
recording
until-
of it, but nobody's like monitoring that in real time.
We recorded it after the fact, yeah, but nobody was just like, hey, Luke and Han are in the garbage chute right now. Do we want to do anything about that? We also have people who saw them go into it, but nothing. It malfunctioned. Are we going to worry about that? Nah, that's nothing.
Nah, it's fine. I'm not worried.
It's fine. Yeah.
So really both of our cult ideas are just like people trying to do jobs competently.
Yes.
What
I
a
like
world.
that when we think of a cult, it's just a religion that is just like trying to fix something that's wrong with our world. And people are like,
Yeah.
you're crazy. And we're like, no, we're not.
No.
Do you want to know what I was originally going to say before Chris inspired me?
Yeah,
Thank
I
you,
do.
Chris.
I do want to know.
Originally, it's not that funny, but it's Star Wars funny in that I wanted to just be a contrarian and create a cult that was just being a dick to Vader. And it was just a cult of sand. Just people that just spread sand everywhere they go. And they carry sandpaper on them to sand things down and make sand out of just like regular stuff everywhere
I think
they
it
go.
would be awesome. You know, what is it? I think it's like a thing. I don't. There's some superstition. Maybe it's something about like witches or ghosts or something that if you put like salt around in front of like a door or like in a circle or something, like ghosts or like spirits or something can't cross like the salt line. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking about because I watched Supernatural. Salt Circle.
Yeah. Yeah,
Essentially,
that.
that's all it is. Just if you create a line that can't be broken of salt,
Yeah.
like supposedly ghosts can't get by it, and that's why in
Okay.
every episode of Supernatural, there's always the scene where Jensen Ackles is just like, "You see this circle? You don't step outside of it, no matter what. You don't." And of course, then the ghost pulls a ghost and like just blows on the circle.
Yes, that idea. What I'm imagining is people just like doing that, but with sand to protect against Vader coming to kill them. But like,
Yeah.
I'm picturing like Vader coming to like, what if he had shown up at the Jedi Temple to kill all the younglings, but they were in a little circle of like, and they were in like a sandbox?
Yes.
And then he was just like, no, my one weakness.
I'm not touching that. No way.
He was like, I'm not going near that.
Yeah. No sand. No sand for me. Done with that. Traumatized. I mean, it's also great once he is Darth Vader, because I'm pretty sure with the breathing apparatus, really all you gotta do is throw sand at him, and it doesn't matter if he's got the Force. It's just like, okay, this is kind of gummed up the works.
Oh yeah, that would like junk up everything. Yeah, get all
Yeah,
the
he'd be like,
joints and all his mechanisms and everything.
That's the real reason he hates sand. He's seen his future. He knows it will immediately wreck his respiratory. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's our show. Thanks for listening.
As always, we'll be posting new episodes whenever we get them done at whenever they're ready. May the Force be with you.
Let's do it again. Should I can just count us in.
Okay.
May.
I didn't know I thought you were gonna count down.
Come
again.
on.
I thought you were gonna count down.
I'm just gonna point.
Okay. Okay. May the
Force be with you. Come on, Devin, I gotta jump on a work thing here.
No, I was trying to do it, but I think there might also be kind of like a delay.
Okay. I'm gonna say it, and then you just say it in the same rhythm.
Okay. I'll overlay them and we'll fix it in post. May the Force be with you.
Perfect.
That'll do it.